Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about my week number 12 must-start and must-sit wide receivers for fantasy football in 2021. Inside today's video, we're going to begin by discussing my must-start wide receivers of the week, and then about halfway into the video, we're going to be pivoting into my must-sit wide receivers based upon their matchups for week number 12. But before we could get on into things, I would like to ask, if you are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, to please make sure that you hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure to hit that like button down below to help boost this video up the algorithm so that more beautiful people like yourself can see today's video. I'd also like to ask, if you guys are on Twitter and would like to follow me on there, to please do so at Notorious FNTSY. So without further ado, let's get into my week number 12 must-start and must-sit wide receivers. We begin with the must-start category, headlined by Devonta Smith, wide receiver of the Philadelphia Eagles, going up against the New York Football Giants in New York. Over the last 3 weeks, we have finally started to see some consistency out of Devonta Smith. Earlier on in the season, we saw flashes of greatness. We saw flashes of superstardom, especially in week number 1, his first ever start in the NFL. The guy had a great game, and then he kind of faded away, but then he'd pop back up again, and then you're like, oh, you know what, maybe Devonta Smith is back, maybe he's going to continue to be consistent, and then he'd fade away again, he'd show back up, and then fade away again. But recently, over the last 3 games, we have finally started to see that consistency. Last week was his worst showing of the last 3 games, with 4 receptions on 6 targets for 61 yards up against the New Orleans Saints, despite the Philadelphia Eagles actually running the football recently. Nick Sirianni had an epiphany and realized that, hey, maybe if we run the football instead of throwing it every single play, the defense won't be ready when we have to throw the ball. Maybe if we run the ball, we will actually be able to win games. I know, very shocking thought process that Nick Sirianni finally had when he finally had that epiphany, but it's true, he did have that epiphany, and now they've started running the ball more. But even so, Devonta Smith has still been a reliable player for fantasy football as of recently. And going up against the New York Football Giants this week has the potential for another upper echelon performance out of Devonta Smith. Based upon what we've seen over the last 3 games, I believe that you can start Devonta Smith very confidently this week as well as going forward. So I love him this week in this NFC East battle up against the Giants. My next must-start wide receiver is Elijah Moore of the New York Jets, going up against the Houston Texans in Houston this week. Moore has been on a metaphorical warpath over the NFL in his last 4 games. While the team has had other receiving options of note like Corey Davis and Jamison Crowder, and while they've had so many quarterback changes, we've seen Magic Mike White, we've seen Josh Johnson, we have seen Joe Flacco, and we're going to be seeing Zach Wilson this week. And I don't think it matters at all. Even with all of this carousel at the quarterback position, Elijah Moore has been the alpha wide receiver on the team. Last week, in their matchup up against the Miami Dolphins, he had 8 receptions on 11 targets for 141 yards and a touchdown. He also tacked on 15 rushing yards on a single rush. This week, they faced the Houston Texans, who looked very stout last week up against the Tennessee Titans, but in my opinion, that was more of a flash in a pan. That was more of just a 1-game stint of greatness, and I think they fall back down to earth this game up against the Jets, and I do believe that Elijah Moore could see a humongous showing yet again this week. I understand that some people are going to be nervous because Zach Wilson hasn't looked great when he was starting for the team. But like I said, to further emphasize, this guy's produced with Mike White, he's produced with Josh Johnson, and he produced with Joe Flacco. So you better believe with Zach Wilson under center, Elijah Mitchell will be able to put up a solid fantasy performance, especially up against a not-so-hot defense like the Houston Texans. Next player to talk about is Michael Pittman Jr. going up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this week at home. Now, last week, going up against the Buffalo Bills, I personally thought that the Buffalo Bills would be able to win that game, or at least they'd be able to, crawl their way back into the game if things went bad. But obviously, the Indianapolis Colts ran an absolute train on the Buffalo Bills. Jonathan Taylor scored not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, but 5 fucking touchdowns in that game. And that kind of left Michael Pittman Jr. out to dry. He had just 2 receptions on 5 targets in that game for 23 yards. So obviously, that's not great. But this week up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I don't think that they're going to be able to just coast to a victory by running the ball with Jonathan Taylor. I think that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers run defense will actually do something in this game, thus making the team air the ball out more thus giving Michael Pittman Jr. a lot of value on the week. I understand that Pittman hasn't been playing so strong as of recently, but I do believe that he bounces back this week up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in what should be a very fun game on Sunday. Before we pivot into the must-sit wide receivers of the week, I would like to let you guys know that we have partnered with Yahoo Fantasy this NFL season to bring you guys some great offers. Check out our exclusive limited-time offer, which gets you guys 1 free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. To qualify, you need to be new to Yahoo, sign up for an account via the link down below, deposit, and play. That's it. Yahoo will send us your name after you play in your first paid contest, and we'll reach out to you via email with your coupon. If you would like immediate access to play today, that's okay as well. All you got to do is email support@awesemo.com, and we will get you set up immediately. You can also claim a free $10 of site credit by clicking the link down below in the video description, which can be used to enter any Yahoo contest, including Sunday's $1 million NFL Baller. Make sure that you guys use our DFS tools, as well as projections designed specifically for Yahoo to help you guys get the best shot at winning big. Please make sure that you check out Yahoo Fantasy, link down below in the description. Now we pivot to the must-sit wide receivers, beginning with Jarvis Landry of the Cleveland Browns, going up against the Baltimore Ravens this week in Baltimore. Landry has fallen very short of his expectations this season, though last week he had a bit of a resurgence, having 4 receptions on 8 targets for 26 yards up against the Lions, with 1 rush for 16 yards and a touchdown. Round of applause for Jarvis Landry. He has a good game. And while that was great, if you guys listened to me last week where I kind of talked up Jarvis Landry and I said he was a must-start wide receiver, this week up against the Ravens, he should be left on your bench. Head coach Kevin Stefanski came out and said that Jarvis Landry is playing through a left knee injury, so he is not going to be 100% in this game, and he is also facing a much stronger defense than the Detroit Lions. And Baker Mayfield just does not look like himself. Baker Mayfield does not look good. This game seems like a recipe for disaster for Jarvis Landry, so I'd much rather leave him on the bench after he had a nice solid game last week for you up against the Lions. My next must-sit wide receiver is Courtland Sutton of the Denver Broncos, going up against the LA Chargers. This week, we saw Courtland Sutton sign a 4-year contract extension with the Denver Broncos. While it's great to see Courtland Sutton get that bag, it's great to see him get that increased salary. Congratulations, Courtland Sutton. But this is not indicative at all of Courtland Sutton's play this season. Last week up against the Philadelphia Eagles, he had 2 receptions on 3 targets for 29 yards. Since Jerry Jeudy returned from his injury, Sutton has been cast aside. He's been pushed to the corner. And there are really no signs at all. When I'm watching these games, it's not like Courtland Sutton is bad or anything. Like, he's still a good wide receiver. There's a reason why they paid him a boatload of fucking money to stay with the team. But no signs are pointing towards Teddy Bridgewater giving him the ball more, for him getting an increased target share in the offense. If Jerry Jeudy was miraculously gone tomorrow, then I would love Courtland Sutton. But in this situation where Teddy Bridgewater just loves throwing the ball to Jerry Jeudy, I just don't see how you can reasonably want to start Courtland Sutton. So facing the Chargers this week, Courtland Sutton is best left on your bench. Final must-sit player of the week is Marquez Valdes-Scantling, wide receiver of the Green Bay Packers, going up against the LA Rams this week at home in Lambeau Field. Valdes-Scantling played amazing up against the Minnesota Vikings last week, having 4 receptions on 10 targets for 123 yards and a touchdown. Awesome. This resulted in him being picked up in so many leagues off of the waiver wire. The downside of MVS doesn't even necessarily have to do with Marquez Valdes-Scantling, because we've seen flashes like this throughout his career as a Green Bay Packer, where he has these great games, he has a high target share, and he looks good. The issue is that every single week, it is damn near impossible to predict who Aaron Rodgers' second most targeted player on the team will be, besides Devonta Adams, obviously the guy behind Devonta Adams. Could it be Valdes-Scantling this week? 100%. But it could also be Allen Lazard. It could also be Randall Cobb. Or maybe it's a Mercedes Lewis week. You never really know. There is also a possibility that there is no clear number 2 wide receiver behind Devonta Adams, and he's just spreading the ball out evenly. So with all of these questions surrounding the upside of Marquez Valdes-Scantling, you should just leave him on the bench. There's too much risk, in my opinion. All of the risk outweighs the reward because he might literally score 0 points this week up against the LA Rams. There's also a tough defensive matchup up against the LA Rams. So thank you guys all so much for watching today's video. If you did end up enjoying, please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below, as well as hitting that like button. I know that if you guys read the article that I wrote on my must-start and must-sit wide receivers, then Darnell Mooney is missing from this video as a must-start wide receiver. He's playing right now on the Thanksgiving game up against the Lions. He's playing quite well. So if you read the must-start article, then good for you. Hopefully you played Darnell Mooney, but Darnell Mooney was replaced in this video by Michael Pittman Jr. So thank you guys all so much for watching. I love you guys all, and as always, have a great rest of your guys' day. Make sure you check out Yahoo Fantasy. Happy Thanksgiving. I love you guys. Goodbye.